Lady Arbella Stuart was born, it is believed, in Chatsworth House, in the county of Derbyshire, England. Lady Arbella Stuart's father was the first Earl of Lennox, Charles Stuart, and her mother was Elizabeth Cavendish, a lady of the bedchamber to Queen Elizabeth I. She was also one of the wealthiest women in England, at the time. Arbella would be an only child. Her parents would die very young. Her father died at 21 years of age when Arbella was less than a year old, and her mother died at only 26 years of age, when Arbella was only 7 years old. Arbella would then become the ward of her grandmother, which was quite unusual, as orphans of privilege would usually become wards of Master of the Court of Wards, at the time, Lord Burleigh. Her grandmother, Elizabeth Talbot, Countess of Shrewsbury, otherwise known as Bess of Hardwicke, took her to her home in Derbyshire, Hardwicke Hall, where they lived in protective seclusion. Lady Arbella Stuart was educated to a very fine standard. A very bright child became a very intelligent woman. She continued her education into her adulthood, learning French, Spanish and Italian. She also learnt to play various instruments including the lute, viol, and virginals, an instrument that was part of the harpsichord family. Arbella was taught to read, and her writing was to an exceedingly high standard. She would eventually settle on William Seymour as her husband, and they were married in secret. Lady Arbella Stuart's duty was to marry very well. As she was fourth in line to the throne after Queen Elizabeth I, it was imperative she make an excellent marriage. But any proposal would have to be agreed by Her Majesty before any marriage could take place, to make it legal. It would appear the first suggestion would come from the House of Savoy, the next from the Duke of Parma, of Portugal, for his eldest son. Originally proposed by the Pope himself, which would have perfectly suited the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope finally decided to defrock his own brother, to enable him to marry, but nothing came of any of these suggestions. It would appear there is no direct evidence to prove whether Arbella was in fact a Catholic, or Protestant. For marrying without the King's permission, King James had both Arbella and William Seymour imprisoned. William was imprisoned in the Tower of London, and Arbella was held in the home of Sir Thomas Perry, in Lambeth. Arbella wrote attentively to William, and to the king. When the king heard of her letters to Seymour however, he made arrangements for Arbella to be transferred from Lambeth to the custody of William James, the Bishop of Durham. In order to delay her departure, Arbella claimed to be unwell, in order to escape. The escape itself was a success, for both Arbella, dressed as a man, and William. Unfortunately, Arbella left port before William's arrival. William boarded the next available vessel for France, but the king, having received word of the escape, sent men to recapture Arbella and return her to England. This they did, overtaking Arbella's vessel just before they reached Calais. Lady Arbella was returned to England, and imprisoned in the Tower of London. Lady Arbella spent the remainder of her life imprisoned in the Tower. She would never again set eyes on her beloved husband, William Seymour, the second Duke of Somerset. With the bleakness of her life in captivity before her, Arbella began to refuse her food. She would succumb to starvation on September 27, 1615, when she died in the Tower. Her body was laid to rest in Westminster Abbey, in London.